Hi. So today I would like to discuss a little bit more about the concepts and practices of seed quality, in fact, seed quality assurance. And before we go into it, we would like to tell you that what exactly are we achieving here. So after this module, you will be able to understand the modalities of seed quality assurance. You can set up and manage your own field inspection team. And also you can set up and manage a seed testing laboratory. So that's what exactly we are looking for in this discussion. So if you have any more questions or any other detailed discussions regarding that, we can talk about that surely. So just wanted to tell you what are the basic points of seed quality assurance. So during the seed quality assurance that you have already seen in the earlier lectures, seed quality assurance is a third-party assurance system. So there, what do they do? So they do, first of all, the seed source verification. Are the seeds coming from a verified source? Had the seeds been produced in the right way? Are the seeds which are being used for the seed production is having a very high quality or not? These things we need to verify if the seed source is verified. Next is the field inspection. So we need to see exactly, are the seeds which are being produced now are being produced in the right way or not, right scientific way or not. Then we have to go for the seed testing. So after the seeds have been produced, they have been assured in the field by field inspection to just check out that if everything has gone in the right way. We take a sample and do the seed testing. We will be elaborating on these two. And then finally, we have the varietal purity testing. So after the seeds have been produced already, they have been tested for germination, moisture, and all these. We need to see that if the genetic purity or the varietal purity is correct or not. So in the seed quality assurance, in today's discussion, we will be a little bit focusing on the field inspection and the seed testing. So that's the main fundamental thing that we are going to do here. So talking about now the field inspection, there are certain objectives. So first of all, we need to verify the seed source. We need to monitor crop and cultivation conditions. We need to ascertain the isolation distance so that the varieties that are being grown are at a current isolation from the other varieties so that there is no admixture. We need to monitor the off types. Are there any off types within the plots that we are growing the seeds? We need to monitor the objectionable diseases. Are there some objectionable seed-borne diseases inside it? So we need to check it. So we also need to oversee the contamination during harvesting. So at the time of harvesting, the seed inspectors whoever are in charge of doing it, they will also see that are the seeds being harvested in the right way? Are the seeds, two varieties are being harvested very close to each other so there can be a mechanical admixture? So these things are always checked. So now we come to the field inspection methods. First question is when? Actually, a seed field is inspected a number of times, and this number depends on the crops that we are dealing with. And normally there are three mandatory inspections, three mandatory times where which you have to do this field inspection. First is at sowing, where you verify a lot of things I'll be explaining soon. At the time of flowering, because that's the time the flowers are exposed to other foreign pollen grains. So at the time of flowering, and then at the time of harvesting, when there is a huge chance of when many crops or many varieties are harvested at the same time, we need to see that if there is no mechanical admixture. So these are the primary things that we are looking for. So now we will look into the inspections, the field inspection that is done during the time of the sowing. So what are the things that are being taken into account? So primarily, first of all, verification of the cropping area and the seed source. So from where the seed has been purchased, either the foundation seed or the registered seed, wherever they have been purchased, have they been purchased from an authentic source? Was it a, do they have purchase labels? They have the purchase orders or something like that, so that you can verify them. And then you have to verify the cropping area. The cropping area means, is the land that has been already applied for, is the correct? Is there any error in calculating the area of the land? So all these things are verified. Then we have to check out the cropping history. This cropping history determination is extremely important. There is a concept called volunteer plants. So volunteer plants are the crops, same crops or different crops which were already there in the last cropping season, and some seeds may be there already in the soil. And after when you sow this new seed crop, these crop seeds will germinate and they will also come up and they will ultimately contaminate the whole seed field. So it is already, it's always necessary to determine what the cropping history, what crop was grown earlier. So normally what happens is that a field is outrightly rejected if the same crop of a different variety was grown in the earlier season. So this is already done so that there is no chance of error of any kind of admixtures. Then we have to determine the isolation. So after the seed crop has been sown in the field, we have to check the isolation. Now, why isolation? Now, isolation is normally done so that there is no contamination of pollen from other crops or other varieties coming into these crops. So what happens is that if they are not isolated, they are very close by, the pollen grains will travel. After the pollen grains will travel, then in the next generation, there will be a mixture of the varieties. So the variety that has been designated or it is growing in the next seasons or in the subsequent generations, they will be totally be broken down. So that's why we have to get isolation. Now, there are isolation distances are already specified in the International Seed Testing Association manuals, as well as many other seed certification manuals. So for every crop, depending on how far the pollen travels, the isolation distances are maintained. So I'll give you an example, right? For wind pollinated crops, self-pollinated, wind pollinated crops like wheat and rice, the isolation distance is 3 meters. So it is believed that more than 3 meters, this pollen will not travel. But like for cabbage, cauliflower, these kind of crops where the pollens can travel through insects, the isolation distances are 1500, 1000 meters. So that means you have to have 1.5 kilometers distance between two crops of different varieties of same crops of cabbage or cauliflower to be grown, because these insects can travel long distance. So this is the basic fundamental reason why these isolation distances are different for different crops. So depending on how the pollen grains and how far and how the pollen grains travel, these isolation distances are already formulated. And again, how to do the control plot test for field inspection of field crops. There are the OECD seed schemes already there. You can it will be these documents will already be there in the links in this learning management system. So with those links, you can access these documents. These are very authentic as well as comprehensive documents with which we can follow on how to do the field inspections. So whatever I'll be discussing today are based on the guidelines which are already published in these documents. So coming to the next thing, the inspection during or just before and after flowering. So somewhere after flowering. So this is the most important time where we normally do our field inspections. So first of all, what are the things that we are looking for? So first we look for off types, other crops, weeds or admixtures. So the inspector, the field inspection personnel or the field seed inspector, they enter the field, and you can see these figures. They walk in random according to the different patterns with which you can walk inside, and you can see these small squares. These small squares are the places where you should take the measurements. So if this bigger square is the field and the person is walking through this in this line, so you should take samples from these positions. So you can see that this is adapted from the serial seed technology. This document is also provided in our in the learning management system as a link. And then we have to examine a unit area. You can see these small squares that I have shown. So these unit area, normally they are 1 meter square wire frames. Normally they carry. They put it on the fields and they start to take counts. And we take that in that square, how many off types are there, how many other crops are there, how many weed seeds are there, how many admixtures are there, and these are calculated in different places as per these walk patterns I've just shown. So this is the protocol that how we do it. And then what we do is we calculate the percentages. So we calculate the percentages based on the total, the percentage that is averaging of all these percentages of these off types or other crops or weeds or the other admixtures. We calculate the percentage and then we note down. And the next thing is we have to recheck the isolation. Maybe during the sowing and this flowering stage, there have been recently some other crops that already been shown in the vicinity. We have to recheck the isolation distance. So we again have to just check if the isolation distance from the seed crop which we are inspecting is different, is a similar that what we had already earlier. Okay, so now we are talking about the inspection that is happening at the post-flowering or pre-harvesting inspection. So there is another, in many crops there are post-flowering inspections also. Again, we have to check the off types, weeds, and we have to advise the roguing. And we have to advise if roguing is necessary. Then we have to advise clean harvesting procedures. The seed inspector, they will be advising on the farmers, whoever is growing the seed crops, on clean harvesting procedures, how we should clean the harvesting machinery, how we should be doing the harvesting and the threshing in an isolated area so that there is no mechanical admixture or any other admixture of any other seeds or any other crops, any different varieties. And then at this stage, the inspection report is finalized. So you can see that we had inspections many times of the same field, of the same plot. And then we will be compiling at the harvesting stage, all these reports which were already there will be compiling into one final inspection report. So you can see that this is one of the calculations. I'm just showing you as an example. So the seed inspector has entered into the field and he or she has taken counts total. Normally, what are the number of heads within that unit area is there? Maybe this was 1,000, and in the first square you just saw earlier. So first square there was no off types, and again 0 0, and there was one plant affected by seed-borne diseases. So like this in the second square. So those small squares where we are stopping to take the counts are called the counts. So in the second count, you can see that there were 2 off types. In the third one, there were 1 off types. And ultimately, we do this calculation and we find out that what is the percentage. So you can see that there are 0.012% off types are there. There are inseparable other crops are there. So inseparable other crops are the seeds of which are similar shape and size so that you cannot separate. Just like mustard and argemone, you can see wild oats and wheat. So these seeds cannot be separated, very difficult to separate. They look similar, they are very difficult to separate by mechanical means. So this is how the calculations are done. And this is an example. I'm not sure if you can read it, but the example will be there in the link. So this is how a final field inspection format looks like. The blue ones are actually the ones that we need to fill in. So this is an example from Myanmar, where you can see that this is the report number 2 and the field numbers. We have the take which crop is that, which variety, the date of sowing, date of inspection. So these are the information we have to put in the field inspection form. And this is very standard. Most of the field inspection forms all over the world will have a similar kind of a pattern. Maybe here and there some of the information will be different, but ultimately this is actually the most standard field inspection form. So this is how you should do. So since this is a rice one, there may be field inspection forms specific for different crops also. So like there in some places the seed-borne diseases may be more, where the seed-borne diseases may be less, and all these things depending on that the field inspection reports are there. So this is an example you can see. And after that, what we are doing is we will now we have learned about the field inspection procedures. Now we will be going into the seed testing procedures.